Now, the other thing that you mentioned, you went through about looking at today and 90 days ago and 360 days ago. Number of products in that niche, right? It's showing. So I want to go back to what you said about finding an underserved market. So what is the definition of underserved? So based on looking at this insights data, yeah, tell us your take on a seller reading this. How do they say, oh, there is opportunity here? Oh, no, this is not so good. What is the difference?
Yeah. Um, I think you would have to look at it relative to other niches that you're exploring. Because someone might have heard, you do that multiplication and be like, 6 grand for an entire year of sales on one product. That doesn't sound worth it. But you do want to keep in mind, again, that these niches are defined by specific shopper searches. It's a little bit like search query performance when everyone was going and doing an analysis of the sales, and they're like, wait, I know just my ad sales through this one keyword are greater than search query report is telling me. Like, what is the difference in the definition here? It's like, oh, well, this only shows you sales that are achieved, through the search grid. There's plenty other places and product pages and all other places that you can make sales. It's just defined as through the search. So it's a little bit like that when we're doing the average unit sold. It would be the average unit sold. Again, they're averaging it across everything. So best sellers and worst sellers. So, it's possible that you could be on the upper end of this. And also, it's only going to be units sold through those specific search terms that are again defined by the grouping in the niche. And so it's not good. There's potential to, go outside of this. And also, if you look at products, you will find that they're in more than one niche, which means that there is potential, to have a couple niches. And so don't hear that and say, oh my goodness, I'm only going to be able to make 6K a year. Like, that's not going to be worth it to anybody, obviously. 6K a month, maybe, but I don't think I'd want to go a full year, have to deal with all the inventory headache. But it will give you a good idea, to your point, as to where should I be going after in the space? Where's the greatest potential? And I would say if you're evaluating, again, like number of products, again, these are a number of products in the top 90% of clicks, or you're evaluating, average units sold, or you're evaluating something else, I would look at it relative. So for context and relativity, the niche that I'm looking at, average price points, $30 and change, and average units sold is like 3,000 to 4,000, which again, you still might hope to make a little bit more than that for a year, but that's greater than the niche that you're looking at. So relative, it seems to be a little bit better of a market as far as volumes go.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously looking at just one niche and looking at the average unit sold, that's going to be only a small piece of the puzzle, so to speak.
Mhm.
But the way you mentioned is exactly the way to use this. Not look at it in isolation, but look at it in comparison to other niches, because
Mhm.
your product can be in multiple, and will be in multiple. People will search it in different ways, but when you look at those individual ones across the board, you have a good sense of what you have, and that's the way to make a decision. So,
Yeah.
there is the old 80-20 rule, right? So 80% of the business generated by 20%. So um, it's the same thing here. So in on the insights tab, it's showing the number of products that generated 90% of the clicks.
Mhm.
First of all, if that number is small, then that means that it's going to be very hard for you to get in there if you're not already one of them, right? But you want that number to be a large number, right? So that's one, the way I'm reading this, as far as um, defining something that has an indication of underserved market. Then the other thing is the top 5 products. What is their click share? Because they are showing 90% of the clicks go to X number of products, and then top 5 products, what is their share in that? So again, that number, you want that number to be small. So you want the number that shows the 90% of the clicks to be a large number, and you want the top 5 products that receive the clicks to be a small number. So
Yeah.
that way, that means that you have a lot of room. First of all, a lot of listings are getting clicks. The next thing is those that are generating the most sales, they're only getting a small number of the clicks. So
Mhm.
that's what you're looking for. And then when you factor that into the brand, you know, where it shows, again, out of the top 5, again, they show the top 5 brands clicks. And those top 5 brands clicks, you want that to be small. So ultimately, from everything that I see, I'm looking at this page. Really, what interests me is 3 numbers.
Mhm.
How many listings are there in the top that receiving the top 90% of the clicks? How many listings are receiving? What is the search share of the top 5 listings? And what is the search share of the top 5 brands? Because there's maybe two different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And then if they are on the low side, less than 20%, you want that to be less than 20%, ideally, because I'm looking at, usually it's the 80-20 rule.
Mm.
And you want that to be less than 20%. And you want many listings receiving the top 90 searches. I think then that will say there is room here. I can get in here and I can be one of those, maybe brand number 20, 25, and there's still plenty of room for me to take some search share. What is your take on my reading of this?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that would be how I would read it. You know, like if you had, say, the top 5 products are taking up 90% of the click share, well, then unless you're in those top 5 products, you're fighting over the last 10%, which can be a little bit difficult. And if we're looking at the top 20 products, and again, those are eating up, say, 90% of the click share, well, then again, if you're not in the top 20 click products, which I do want to specify. So when they're saying top clicks, they're just saying what's getting the top clicks. It doesn't necessarily mean the top ranked, although generally speaking, you know, the higher rank your product, the more visibility you're going to have, the better clicks you're going to have. So I would say it's related, but it's not exactly the same. It's actually kind of surprising sometimes when you go and look at keywords and then, you know, where Amazon's giving you the top 3 clicked products and you go and look at the search rank for those top 3. Sometimes it's middle of the page for one of the top 3 click products. That does happen. And that's kind of a more intense analysis, to time consuming, not intense to do, but it can be kind of interesting and eye-opening. But yes, I would agree with your assessment. You know, you're basically just saying like, hey, is everything concentrated on 2 brands, right? I mean, if I looked at top 90% of clicks for brands, if you saw, oh wow, you know, there's 31 brands that are in the top 90% of clicks, that's awesome. And then when you looked at brands, you're like, there's 2. Okay, so there's 2 brands that are pretty much just dominating the market share on these searches and all the clicks. Okay, so it's not that you can't compete, but you know that there's some very entrenched brands here.